how did you even get there? And then just tell a little bit of your story.
Yeah, so my story is funny. It's definitely one of those zigzag round and about ways. So I was like the clinic nurse, for a year and a half. But I loved my nursing career. Never even imagined being anything other than a nurse. That was definitely my identity, I was a nurse. A girlfriend of mine did this diet cleanse thing. I tried it, felt amazing. It really helped me give me a jump start. And I did lose some pounds, but it was more that energy I had. I wanted to go for walks again. I felt like a better mom. And so I felt so much better that I kept talking about this 12-day cleanse that I had done.
So many people see that. So many people work hard.
Yes.
I always say, entrepreneurs, they work hard, but no one works hard like a blue-collar worker. What made you believe in yourself to change your identity?
I was always doing it out of a desire to help people because I was doing nutrition and weight loss. It was interesting. I got a lot of pushback from the people in my life at the time. More of a concern for me. You're drinking the Kool-Aid and they're kind of brainwashing you.
Maybe the team's not as organized as it's supposed to be, right? Maybe people are a little bit confused on roles and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this core element of culture. You can only do these things if you have that culture where your team is actually engaged.
Yes.
All right, welcome to the Wellness Business Secrets Podcast. This is the podcast where we are going to take you into a deep dive behind the scenes of what it actually looks like to own and operate a 7-figure wellness business. So my name's Josh. I'm going to be your host today, and we have Miss Lindsay Kirby here. Hey, Lindsay.
Hello.
Awesome. And so Lindsay's journey, man, it's something else, right? We started 8 years ago, correct?
Yes, 8 years ago.
Just a red light machine.
A used red light machine.
A used red light machine. Best way to start, right? Talk about bootstrap. And you have grown it into a little bit of empire, right?
Yeah.
Doing close to, multiple 7 figures in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
You now have 2 locations here in Washington, one in Pasco, one in Kennewick.
Correct.
And just getting you to come and see the team operate, see the people walk through the door, see the setup. You are way more than just one red light machine now.
Yeah, we have over 35 services now.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey. So what I really want to break down first is, I think for a lot of people, there's that elusiveness of the 7-figure business, right? It's you become a business owner and it's everything's like that. And then,
Mm-hmm.
You scroll through social media and it almost feels like everyone's already there.
Totally.
And I think before we even dive into, the ins and outs of operations, some of the struggles, what we're working on, things like that, I kind of want to just go back to the beginning. Take me there. It was you're starting with a used red light machine.
Okay.
How did you even get there? And then just tell a little bit of your story.
Yeah, so my story is funny. It's definitely one of those zigzag round and about ways. I ended up with a used red light machine because I was a traditional nurse doing labor and delivery. Loved that. Did that for about 10 years. Did the hospital shift work, labor and delivery. I did do some about a year and a half helping, went directly to a physician's office. So I was the clinic nurse, for a year and a half. Along the way, I had 3 babies myself. And so, life got busier too. But I loved my nursing career. Never even imagined being anything other than a nurse. That was definitely my identity, I was a nurse. And then really what happened is that I started to feel physically stuck myself. Right around the time I was early 30s, and having the kiddos and working a lot of night shift and yada, yada, I realized that I had about 10, 15 pounds I couldn't get off. But it wasn't even just the weight that was bugging me. It was I was so exhausted all the time. And I would work a night shift and it looked so pretty on paper. I would have 6 days off in a row until my next 10-day night shift stretch. But during those 6 days, when I thought I would finally see my kids and play with them because, they're going into daycare the rest of the time, I realized that I was the laziest mom, just watching my kids on the couch and, making them go outside and play. And I just had no energy. And so a girlfriend of mine did this diet cleanse thing. And this is about 2011, 2012. She did a diet cleanse thing and she lost the weight, but she kept raving about how much energy she had and how good she felt. So I tried it, felt amazing. It really helped me give me a jump start. And I did lose some pounds, but it was more that energy I had. I wanted to go for walks again. I felt like a better mom. I was craving actually clean food again. And so I felt so much better that I kept talking about this 12-day cleanse that I had done. And I started sharing it with my friends and coworkers at the hospital.
Yep.
Well, I thought my friend had ordered that Nutrition Cleanse 12-day program for me from QVC or some place like that. Like, I didn't know any different. And anytime I had someone that wanted it, I asked her to, hey, order it for this friend. And about 3 months later of sharing it with a whole bunch of friends and family, I get this call from a lady at like 9 o'clock at night. I had worked a long day shift. And I was like, why is someone from Spokane, Washington calling me? And I ended up, I don't even know why I answered. And it was this lady. She was so upbeat. She's like, hi, my name is Cindy. And I'm calling from, it was Isogenics. And she's like, I'm calling from Isogenics. And it looks like you're really loving our nutrition program. And it looks like you're sharing it with friends and family. And I'm like, why is QVC calling me at 9 o'clock at night? This is so weird. And I was like, yeah, I really love it. And she goes, well, did you know you have a whole bunch of points built up? And if you just share with a few more friends, like you could make a whole bunch of money back. She's like, you have essentially like a savings account of all this potential money. And I was like, okay. And she's like, all you have to do is I can come to your house and we can have one more party and I can just show you how to share it in a way that you actually make the money. So I was like, sounds fun, like a little get together, have a Tupperware party at the house, like whatever. And so that happened. And I thought, okay, cool. Like I did the party and shared with my friends. And when she was there at my house, she was like, and I think I made a couple grand from that party. And I just was like, cool. Like I just got a little bonus and that was fun. I loved having people, I loved sharing about the product in my living room. And she's like, oh no, now we're going to go to Phoenix. You're going to come to this event with me. And I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? And I remember thinking she was explaining to me I was going to go to this event where I would learn like, personal development and learn sales and all this stuff. And I'm like, that sounds crazy. And moms don't just leave their kids and go to some event like that. Mm-hmm. So I just, that thought of that was so foreign to me. And I ended up going because one of my girlfriends thought it sounded really fun. And so we went together and we went to Phoenix. And I remember on the plane ride there that I just kept thinking we were going to walk into like a hotel cold room with a whole bunch of guys in black tuxes with like suitcases. Like I didn't understand at all what like a really fun, like, network marketing, direct sales, Tony Robbins type of event was like. Yep. And essentially when I walked into more of that, what you would picture like a Tony Robbins event, like fun, uplifting, stretching your vision, talking about, mindset and financial freedom and all this stuff that was so new to me. I thought it was so fun and I loved how positive everybody was. And so I just really loved the environment of people talking that way. And I had never in my life heard people around me talk about like financial freedom and residual income and, building your life so that you are making money while you're hanging out with your kids. Those kind of things I've never heard anybody talk about that at that point. So I really just got really curious and kind of like started to be like, I like being around this kind of talk. Yeah. So essentially I got into network marketing, ended up building quite a significant side hustle in network marketing that way.
I was going to ask you, like, did you have any people in your family that were business minded? Like, did you ever see yourself growing up and like, I'm going to own a business?
No, and this is what's so funny though. So I grew up on a wheat farm in the middle of nowhere. Jeez. And so I come from generational farmers and from my dad's side. And my mom's side is also from the small town next door. And we're talking like small towns, like 500 people, 800 people. And I grew up between those two small towns. And my mom was from this small town and my dad's from this one. And we grew up in between. And so I had never heard people talk about owning a business. I mean, I knew the town you grew up in, like I knew there were businesses, like there was a grocery store, a pharmacy, and a bank. And the hamburger joint, but I grew up in a town there's not even stoplights. And so nobody was talking about business or who's starting this business in town, things like that. And then my mom's side of the family, my grandpa started a crop dusting business and in the small town did own a business. But nobody in my family ever talked about it as like, that's entrepreneurship or I had never heard the word entrepreneurship. Yeah. I had never heard the word or talking about other business ideas. It was multi-generational things that we just did. Like we just farm. We just our crop dusters. There wasn't a, talking about what else is potential business or how they're building the business. It was just more of a title and what they did.
And when I'm thinking of that, it's like there's an identity shift that happens to become an entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
To go from like, this is what I grew up seeing. It seems like you saw the hard work happen.
Totally.
Right? So it seems like that was kind of a little bit innate there.
Yes.
But so many people see that. I mean, so many people work hard. Right?
Yes.
I always say, entrepreneurs, yeah, they work hard, but no one works hard like a blue collar worker. And so for you, was there like a flip to a switch? Like what made you believe in yourself to change your identity?
It hasn't been honestly until the last couple of years. And this was like 2011, 12, 13 that I was building the side hustle of the network marketing. And my vision was being stretched, but I was still thinking, I was always doing it out of a desire to help people because I was doing nutrition and weight loss. And so I really kept that, my why was to help people. And what was so interesting is that when I would talk about potentially like reducing my nursing hours, or when I was traveling and going to events a lot out of state, so leaving the family, it was interesting. I got a lot of pushback from the people in my life at the time. More of a concern for me, like, you're drinking the Kool-Aid and they're kind of brainwashing you, and they're kind of, they were worried that I was giving false hope. Right. And so there was kind of more of a protection thing. But if you think about it, this is what I've realized. And when I've been doing a lot of work on my belief systems that are way, way deep down there, as I've worked through some of the blocks that I have as I've built a business. It's important to address those things because I didn't know until recently working with a coach about a year and a half ago, some beliefs that I had around that. I actually was building Sculpt now and growing revenue, doubling revenue every year, growing, services, locations. But I had a belief that I still wasn't a business owner, that I was just helping people. Yeah. And I had a belief that I actually wasn't good at numbers and that I didn't know what I was doing in business. And I kept telling myself that, but I just kept saying, we're really good at helping people. So, and if you think about farming, this is what's so funny to me. Farming is very interesting because it's so generational, and I love farming. But what is very interesting, if you think about it, is, and I don't know if you know any farmers, and maybe someone listening does, but farming, you continue to farm, and you will work all year long and potentially make negative money.
Yeah.
And I always laugh about that because I'm like, what else is the definition of entrepreneurship? And talk about also building a business that you don't even have control over. Like you could invest millions of dollars into your crop and we could go to sleep tonight, wake up tomorrow, and it's gone and it's wiped out from weather. Like you can't even predict, that. You can't grow and scale something that weather comes in. I mean, you can. Obviously, you can. There's huge farms. But that, it's just so interesting that they were so wanting to protect me and were very kind of upset that I was doing this. And they were upset that I had become salesy or that I was selling something. Yep. They, a lot of people that were close to me really wanted me to just be a nurse and stop being a salesperson.
How do you... Because you just said a couple years ago, right? You started working with a coach, started working this mindset.
Oh, yeah.
But a couple of years ago, you're already doing 7 figures.
Yes.
Right?
It was actually when I hit 7 figures that I knew something was wrong.
What do you mean?
So I was that entrepreneur so I launched Sculpt with a used red light machine in 2016. In my network marketing travels, I had discovered red light therapy. And it was so funny because I was building this business of network marketing, promoting and selling to people that you don't want to do traditional business. You should do like direct sales. Yep. But in my travels, I discovered body sculpting red lights. And I was like, wait, what? Like I'm coaching nutrition, diet, and exercise. And I see how some people do everything right and they still can't lose the weight from where they want, And I discovered body sculpting red lights where you can put the red light where you want and it releases the body fat. And it also had health benefits like reducing pain and all these things. And I was like, why is no one talking about red light? Like, this is mind blowing to me. And also this is like super exciting. The nurse side of me like loved the science of it. And the moment I learned about that, I thought, oh my gosh, like no one is going to bring that to Tri-Cities, Washington, where I live. And I couldn't let it go. I just had this instant vision of that's how I could really help people want to get healthier if I kind of play on their vanity, because we all want to look better, feel better. And I was like, if I have a tool that I can say, hey, you can put these lights where you want, and you're going to lose the body fat and tighten your skin, and like it'll improve your health, and all you have to do is eat healthy and exercise a little bit. I was like, I'm going to trick people into getting healthier, right? And so that was like my idea. And but my idea was really about the wanting them to create healthier habits and to be rewarded for it. And so that's how I launched Sculpt. And so that was in 2016. And then I quickly realized that I didn't love just red lights. I loved anything that helped people feel better. And I really loved all things wellness, like biohacking. I loved cryotherapy. Like, when I started, obviously you get into that world, you start learning about all these other things. And so then I switched from offering only body sculpting high ticket packages like we were with the red light body sculpting and the used machine. I was only able to sell that. But I called it Sculpt Weight Loss, because I knew that you couldn't call it Sculpt Red Light in 2016 and people would want to, they didn't know what that meant. But what I wanted to do was help them lose weight and get healthy. And so I launched it with Sculpt Weight Loss. But then I quickly was like, you know what? I see people coming in and they're doing their 12 sessions, 24 sessions, paying $2,000 to $3,000 for it. They're getting great results. And I get to know them because they're coming 2 to 3 times a week to do their sculpting sessions. And I feel like they're family now, and I know all their struggles, because when they're on the lights for 20 to 30 minutes, they're telling me about, how they still go home and they have knee pain. So I started to realize there's so much more I want to help people with, way beyond just red light. And so we started bringing on all the other wellness stuff like cryotherapy, infrared sauna. And that was kind of the foundation for the first few years. And this whole time that I'm building it, I'm always making decisions on just what I want to bring on, because it'll help someone. So I'm growing. And we're getting great word of mouth because we really take care of people and love on them. But I don't understand marketing, and so we just really grew with word of mouth. And essentially what happened from 2016 to even through COVID, we pivoted and did some stuff. Is essentially in 2021, I had grown that whole time, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of honestly almost losing the business because I would bring on too much things that sounded fun and sounded too fun, or things that sounded fun and that would help people, but I didn't know my numbers. And so I would just see we're making money. And so if we're making money, I can buy this piece of equipment. Yeah. So I just kept adding. And pretty soon we had probably 10 pieces of equipment, lease payments. We had added more staff. And I just kept thinking, if we just make more money, that'll fix the problem, and the reason that I'm feeling still so broke. Because I was that business owner that was growing, but I was still sweating payroll.
Yep.
Panicking that I didn't have money for rent and payroll. And I'm like, I just realized, and I just kept telling myself, that just means we need to offer more things. We need to buy more stuff. And when we finally make $30,000 a month, that'll solve the problem. Well, what would happen is I would bring on so much cost to operations to make the $30,000 a month that then I would be like, okay, we're making $30,000 a month. I still can't make payroll. We just need to make $40,000 a month. And then I would hit 40 and it was like, I'm still feeling the same. $60,000 a month, $80,000 a month. We brought on a nurse practitioner and expanded to IV therapy. And I was like, if we just hit $85K a month, we're going to be making it. And that'll solve all my stress and my problems. And I'll not stress over payroll. And it was November of 2022 that I realized I was at a conference, and I had won a ticket to a conference. I actually had kind of stopped going to conferences and getting myself in rooms where I felt like my vision was being stretched and I was learning. Mm-hmm. I really had just been staying in the business, and all the way from 2016 to 2022, I was just in the business. And I won a ticket to a conference in 2022 on a whim, went, and I'm sitting in the room, and the speaker was talking about how only 2% of female founders ever generate 7 figures a month. And she was like, I want you to ask yourself, what's keeping you from hitting that 7 figures? And I instantly I'm like, yeah, I just am not. Someday I'll do that. And I'm, what is holding me back? Because I suck. And I'm sitting there writing. I'm like, wait. And I it was supposed to be like quiet write session. And I pull up my numbers really fast on my computer. And I'm like, I am hitting 7 figures. Like October and November of that month, we had hit 6 figures. And the rolling 12 months before that, November to November, it literally was like $1,018. Like I remember the number. And I remember sitting back and going, what the heck? Like I'm sitting in this room wondering why I'm a failure. And I just learned that only 2% of people ever do what I do. I was like, that's really cool. But also, I don't want to continue to grow something that feels like a failure and just more money. And I was like, so I need to figure out why I believe that more money will solve my problems, revenue. I was like, I'm tired of this. Like, I don't want to get to $2 million and have just more debt and more people's lives I'm carrying with me. It scared me. I was like, I don't want to make any more money until I figure out why I can't feel that I'm profitable. Yeah. And it was in that moment that I was like, I either don't want to keep doing this, and I'd rather almost like bring everything back to just almost like me and one machine. Because the funny thing is, when it was just me and that used red light machine, I was actually profitable.
You were making more. Yeah.
It was the most profitable year we've ever had as far as profit margins.
So there's this thing that I've seen, like after working with multiple business owners and then myself with my businesses, is that we hit this place where we chase growth, right? Like you mentioned, it's like
totally.
looking for that revenue, we always just 83K per month.
Totally.
You're at 7-figure run rate.
Yeah.
And you chase that growth, but unfortunately what happens is from that growth comes bloat. Right?
Yes.
It comes more expenses, more payroll, right?
Yes.
Because in order to chase the growth, the only thing we know to do is push, right? We sell.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hit that point of you realize, dang, I'm 2%.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm top 10, you're top 9% when you hit 7-figure run rate of businesses, but you still feel, a lot of people feel like a failure when they're there.
Yes.
And so you hit that place, I see one or two directions people usually go. They either go back to that moment where they're like, when I was just doing everything myself, I was making more money, I'm just going to go back and do that. Mm-hmm. And so they actually shrink.
Yes.
Right?
I can totally see how that happens.
Mm-hmm. Or they quit.
Yeah.
And so for you, when you hit that moment, why didn't you shrink? Why didn't you quit? Like, how did you realize, like, okay, this is worth still pushing forward?
I just got full goosebumps. I think a lot of it helped that I had, by the grace of God, won that ticket and was in a room of where I was in a place of growth. And so I was surrounded by people outside of my circle that saw in me and allowed me to say out loud, wow, and get vulnerable and say, I actually like stood up and was like, and I started crying in front of this whole bunch of women I didn't know. And I was like, I said, I just realized that I'm sitting here feeling like a failure. And I was asking myself, what's wrong with me? And I just realized I am hitting the 7 figures you asked us to ask what's holding us back. I was like, but I still feel like a failure and I'm ready to change that. And so it gives me the biggest lump in my throat because what I realized also is that I hadn't built myself a support system. Yeah. And I was hiding and carrying so much by myself. The only people I had surrounded myself with up to that time was my employees that I wanted to also have that they were also my friends because I lived in the business and I didn't have a personal life anymore. And so I was needing them to also be my friends. And my poor husband that, I'm building more debt to make this more like bigger business, but I was growing obviously debt in order to build it bigger. And so that was stressing him out. It was really stressing our marriage. We were like renting a house and saw no light on how to get out of that situation because we never had any money left. He's working his butt off at a job to support and constantly like saving, if we had to save it, we did. There's multiple times he pulled from his 401 to save it, and I'm like, that doesn't feel like happiness, Yeah. And there's a time where you do that. But again, what I realized, I was like, I'm just this is the same issues every step of the way, but I am scaling, but I'm just scaling the same problems.
Yep.
And those problems are getting bigger and scarier. Like when we were doing about 30K a month, I remember that we had about 18,000 in debt, and it freaked me out. And when we were hitting 6 figures a month, we had millions of dollars in debt, and that's scarier. And I remember in that moment, and on the way home, I actually contemplated pulling it back and going back to just that because it felt safer.
Yeah.
And I knew that's what I wanted, but my vision has always been so big, and I know that I'm meant to reach thousands of people and help thousands of people, and I'm meant to, I know the vision that I have for creating wellness experts through Sculpt, and creating a place where people that love taking care of people can come have amazing careers in a wellness industry that's like beautiful and happy and like rewarding instead of burning them out from healthcare. That's very important to me. And I think it always comes back to, I've had plenty of moments where I've wanted to quit, and my vision comes back to me. I don't feel like I have a choice. I feel like I'm meant to figure it out. But what I always do though, when I have those moments where I'm like, okay, I'm feeling stuck or feeling like a failure, it just means I need to have help. I need to have coaching, accountability, and I need to learn what I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. And in that moment, what I realized is also, I don't know if I'm good or bad with the numbers. I've just never learned them. Right. And so it was funny because the rest of the weekend at that women's conference, there happened to be CPAs in the room. There happened to be, profitability coaches. It was God's so funny. Like he had me in that room at that exact moment. And I came home with new connections where I could really lean on. And I went to work, how I essentially committed to being coachable and opening up my books and saying, I'm making 7 figures, but it's a hot mess, and teach me how to be better.
Yeah, I love how you say the unknown, because what I have seen, the highest stress, it's probably maybe once a week as an entrepreneur. If you're doing it right, you wake up and you're like, I want to burn this entire thing down. Like it's a good once a week.
So true.
If it's not there, something's wrong, right? We're not growing.
Yeah.
But what I've realized and what I've seen from other people is like the unknown is usually where that stress and anxiety comes from. Right?
Yes.
It's because we're not looking underneath the curtain, right? Or underneath the rug, right? We're not picking up. We're sweeping everything underneath there, and we're ignoring where we're deficient in certain skill sets.
Yes.
And business is just stacking skill sets.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of skill sets that, especially when we're passionate people, that's why I love wellness business, because it's not a hard game to get into. Right. I told you my story. I started in a park, with my wellness business. You started with a reused red light machine.
Yeah.
And so it's not a hard business to get into if you're passionate and you can sell.
Yes.
But there comes a point where we start to realize that for this business to work and scale properly without scaling the issues, there are other skill sets that we have to look at.
Yes.
And so when you take the look underneath the hood, right, for the first time, and you actually communicate, and first off, you're vulnerable, you admit it.
1,000%. Yeah.
That person who's there, because someone listening to this, whether they're doing just still in 6 figures or you're 7 figures, if you're in 7 figures, you're in that range, like I guarantee they're dealing with some of the same stuff. Mm-hmm. And so when you take the look underneath the hood, where did you start?
I really started with number one, and it's so funny because we practice, like one of our core values at Sculpt when we're helping clients is that we're results driven, and that we're selling you, if you want to be our weight loss client, that we know you need accountability. So if you're going to do our weight loss program, you also have to commit on your end to being accountable and showing up for check-ins, because we can't help you lose weight if we're not measuring and tracking if you are. You can't measure an outcome if you're not measuring it. And so it's so funny because when it comes to other people and helping other people, I'm really big on not being afraid to force them to track what I'm selling them, because I demand that you get results. Like I don't want to sell you a weight loss program and you not lose weight. Mm-hmm. And so I was so good at that. And so where I started was realizing, and I didn't know it. I had to learn this, but I was like, okay, I don't know profit. Like I don't know when someone would say your P&L, your balance sheet, I was so embarrassed, but I didn't know that stuff. And I was that classic. And I've learned this too, that I would get to the end of the year and I would take all my books and panicking and, oh my gosh, it's tax season. So I'm spending a month in my books, like trying to find every receipt and right. And I would go to my accountant and I would think, for that once a year, 1 hour meeting. And I'd be like, he's going to, teach me how to be profitable, but that's not their job. Like I had to also learn, you can have an accountant, but their job is just to help you file your taxes if it's certain accountants. And so if you need to learn your books and your profitability and your like CEO dashboard type of reporting and profit margins, that's a whole nother level of a type of person you have to invest in if you don't know it yourself. So if that's not your strength, or you've gotten too busy to be checking those things, I was like, that's the person I need. So one of my favorite sayings now is, I don't believe that there's ever not a way. I just think sometimes you're asking the wrong questions. And so, because I would wait till the end of the year to ask my accountant, like, is it good or bad? And I was like, I need to ask someone, teach me, how do I even know if it's good or bad on a consistent basis? I don't want to wait till the end of the year and think we're making money and realize we haven't, it's not good. And so what I started asking, I just started to look for and seek someone. I wanted someone, a coach, a person, whatever it was, to teach me how to be financial literate in business. So I wanted to learn, how do I know my profit margins in my business? I don't want to like watch your thing and you show me what a profit margin is necessarily. I want you to, in a wellness business, in my business, how do I know my profit margins? Because I didn't know that. And I would make up pricing based on what I thought it should sell for or what the market was doing.
This gives me chills. So I kid you not. I woke up in the middle of the night the other day and I wrote this down and I was like, wait, success in business is not about the hacks. It's not about the marketing agency you hire. It's not about your lead flow, right? Those things are tools and components of it. But the business owners that I see that are the most successful are the ones that know what questions to ask. They know how to have that awareness. One of my favorite stories, from the Bible is, King Solomon, he becomes king and he's praying and he's praying and praying. And then, God says, I'll give you whatever you want and whatever you want. And so, if God came down and was like, I'm going to give you whatever you want, like there's a lot of things probably people would ask for. And his response, wisdom. And I think when you see that in business, it's like the wisdom to know what questions do I need to be asking right now?
Yes.
What don't I know?
Yes.
Right? Because there's a million different things that you could do. And I see this all the time, because we have a marketing agency arm as well. And you see all the time where people are coming and they're just like, I want more leads. If I have more leads, business is going to crush.
Yeah.
Do you see that for yourself?
Well, yeah, I've gone through it where I thought that, before I thought that was the answer. More money, more leads, that'll solve the problem. And all it's doing is, if your foundation isn't there and the infrastructure isn't there, it's highlighting where you're weak. Yes. And so, yeah, absolutely. I really do believe that it's asking the right questions. And I think that sometimes too, that it can be so lonely and isolating because you are carrying, you don't want your team to know that you're stressed out, because you don't want to scare them. You want them to believe in the business and things like that. So I think creating and actually intentionally forcing yourself to ask for a community where you can ask those questions is so important too, because if you can't ask those things to your team. So if you're not forcing yourself to get out of your business and create connections to people that have, and you want to ask people that have done it well, you don't want to ask someone else that's also struggling at the same level, because you're just going to end up into a complaint session. And you're going to talk about how no one sells like me. And, I want to grow, but if I'm not there, nobody's selling. It's like find people that have figured out how to grow businesses where they're gone and everyone on the team's selling. Right. Yep. So it's like, again, ask different questions from different people. And so, because that's one thing I learned too, I thought that networking was going to the Chamber of Commerce, and spending an hour and a half there. And I love the Chamber of Commerce, but you're not necessarily learning, So I've really found that it has been invaluable for me, priceless, really, to having won that ticket to that women's group conference. It made me realize it had been years since I was in a room where I felt almost like the smallest fish in the pond. And I needed to start getting myself into rooms where I was the dumbest one in the room. So since November of 22, I've done that. And it's not a speedboat you can fix when you realize you're scaling a non-profitable business. It's been a barge, very slow turn. But I have learned so much, and everything I'm learning has been through a connection to someone that is really good at that thing that I need to learn.
Yeah.
So
what questions right now have you been asking yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So we went through we tried that where it was more leads, more people will solve the problem. And so we tried the marketing, very low entry, got a ton of leads per month. And all it did was actually highlight that my internal operations and structure for the sales process and then retention marketing and number one, tracking lead conversion rates and then tracking a lead that hasn't converted yet was non-existent. So I turned on this fire hose of more people to essentially highlight the fact that we didn't have this infrastructure to take care of those people and turn that lead into any type of ROI.
Yeah. And which is why I'm here, right? This is how we got connected. And I remember us kind of talking and, you had already had another marketing agency you're working with.
Yes.
Right?
Tried a ton. Yeah.
Right. You have lead flow coming in. You're even profitable in one of the campaigns.
Yes.
And that's, something that's driving. That's why you have, more than $1.2 million of recurring revenue from just medical weight loss right now, which is amazing. And, how did you feel when I told you like, hey, we're not going to launch an ad campaign?
It's like, I've been waiting for this moment. Like, I trusted you so much more because I have yet to had another marketing company even ask me that or even wonder if we're ready and ask me how our systems and processes were. Hey, if I send you a lead, what does that look like? What does the lead go through? What happens when they walk in? Who's following up with them if they don't convert? And when I can't answer those questions, I love that you were like, there's no reason to turn on more leads. We need to fix that first. That's foundational. And I mean, I probably have spent multiple six figures on different marketing companies. And I feel like that's kind of where it can be. And that's great for someone that has those operations and those systems there to take care of leads and they're tracking them. But I also realized we had spent tens and, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars on paid ads, trying different things, seeing what sticks. And we would always have to turn them off because they didn't work. Well, same thing. It's like, okay, let's ask a different question. If we're getting a whole bunch of leads that don't convert, is it that the marketing company isn't working, or is it that we aren't what's going on that it's not working no matter what we try?
Yeah. I call it the operations mirror.
Yes.
We have to take a hard look into it. And it's not even just from the lack of conversion part, the part that breaks my heart the most, because, our business has owned millions of dollars in ad spend. Businesses that we worked with, other wellness business owners, last 2 years, I'd probably say close to about $7 million in ad spend now. And so you get a lot of data from that. Mm-hmm. And I've never been the person that's just really nerded out on marketing, which is weird considering, we own a marketing agency. But what I've always nerded out is the operations. And the reason being is because I have realized from, owning my own brick and mortar wellness businesses and seeing other people do it, is that how we sell someone dictates the long-term relationship of that client. Mm-hmm. And so that means how we get the lead, what happens after that lead comes in, right? So we got lead generation, we have lead nurture, we have how do we sell them, mm-hmm. right? Because how we sell them, it's like when you go on a first-time date. How I treat you on that date, it's probably going to dictate what the rest of that relationship looks like.
Sure.
And so it's the same thing with our clients. And so it would always break my heart when people are succeeding with marketing, because marketing works. But then 3 months later, it almost feels like you're chasing your tail, right? It's like you're chasing that revenue because, wait, I signed up 20 people last month, but this month we have to sign up 30. Mm-hmm. And the next month we have to sign up 40. And it's what's happening is we're not creating this, each of those pieces of the puzzle aren't congruent to your client journey.
Yes.
And then that's where we have issues.
Yeah. And I've learned so much. And this wasn't a term I even knew until probably honestly the last 6 months, lifetime value of a client.
Yeah.
And what's really fun for me is I love actually training our team on how our core values relate to data terms, operation terms. And because it was huge for me to be able to make that connection to what felt like cold sales numbers, data. Because I went through a time where when I started to learn profitability and stuff, I realized my operations was too high and that we were also technically overstaffed for what we were producing and efficiency. And so we had to realign to that. And that broke my heart, and it's never easy to let people go. But we also weren't doing them a favor because there wasn't fulfillment in their role because they were kind of just tasky and go through the motions too. And everyone felt really busy, but no one felt really like they were developing and, on a growth track. And so what I've realized is it's really important to learn these terms and tie it to what it means for you. And so what is our Sculpt Wellness's brand promise is, and our logo is even like the logo is a journey, like it looks like a road. And that's always become like when I was telling you that I realized that when I had just the red lights, I didn't want to get to know them and then not see them again. Yep. I would rather retain and get to know people and help them through the journey of what wellness is. And we all know that. Like you can get to the ideal body weight and then you have loose skin or something else is bugging you or you hurt your back. Like, wellness is not one thing and we never arrive. And so our brand promise as Sculpt is that we want to know you and that you are with us on the journey. And along the way, we want to teach you, whatever it is, however we can help, no matter what happens in life. And so it was really fun for me to realize, but not kind of also, it was a huge wake up call that we were generating 7 figures, but we were doing it by seeing more people in a shorter time frame and selling more people less. And so we did a whole team workshop where I was like, I highlighted first the numbers to the team that I had never talked about before because I didn't know them. But when I learned that, and I also learned, again, if you're not tracking these things and analyzing these things, you don't know. Nope. So you feel busy, you are making money, so you think you're killing it. But again, let's ask a different question. Like, what is it that you want to be killing? Being busy and wondering if you're going to have money left? Or do you want to scale and grow a profitable, impactful business and a product or service? And so, that's when it clicked with me. I'm like, oh, our brand promise is we want to take care of people. But what we're selling is like cheap little intro offers and just trying to go through more people to try to find 1 or 2 people, but then we're so busy with these intro offers, we're not taking care of the people that are our raving fans. Mm-hmm. We went through a time where when I was doing a lot of those ads, like more and more people, more and more leads, that's how you grow. We were starting to get, instead of raving reviews, we were getting complaints like, it's changed in here. The culture, it doesn't feel the same. It's not as warm and friendly when I walk in. Like everyone seems kind of stressed out. Like this isn't the Sculpt I remember. And we started to have a high churn rate. So then like on top of I'm spending more money trying to get more leads and our raving fans are dropping off and quietly quitting on us, so then I'm spending more to get more, So what we realized is we actually tie, and I talked to my team about core money KPIs, but we tie it to what that means. We tie lifetime value means we're servicing and we're talking to our clients and we are getting to know them.
Yes. But because when I came out the first day, right? The first day is not with your team, it's with just you, yourself, and one of your higher ups, your number 2.
Yeah.
And did it shock you at all that the first thing, we're coming out here for a client acquisition system, right? We're coming out here, let's get new businesses in the door. Did it shock you that the first thing we focused on was vision?
It did, just because no one else has even asked me that before, or not in that way. So it did shock me, and I loved it because I love talking about vision. But yeah, it did shock me. It's not normal.
And because I think and I call it the foundations here of ops. It's like, it's that vision, it's the mission that we can reverse engineer that into the 1-year target, right? The key focus of the 90-day blitz, right? Of what we're going to do over the next 90 days.
Yes.
And the reason why I think that's so important is because what I have seen happen time and time again is like, if that focus is not there, and then we invest heavily into a paid marketing campaign, what happens is, as long as you want to be a real business owner, you're not the one doing everything, your staff doesn't understand.
Yes.
And so now all they see is we have all these new influx of leads coming in. They're coming in for these intro offers, Groupon style offers, and they're very disconnected from the long-term outcome.
Yes.
And then what happens is then now you have maybe one person who can actually do sales because they're just naturally good at it. And then you have no other people that are driving the growth.
It's so true. And, here I had thought I cast this huge vision and lifetime value and we want to retain. So I need you to cross-sell to people and talk to them about if they're doing weight loss, how we have aesthetics. And 6 months, 8 months go by and nothing's changing. And that's when I reached out to you guys. I was like, okay, explaining the why, explaining the heart to it behind it is still not solving the problem that the leads we were getting, we're selling them that one thing and we're not increasing our lifetime value. Our churn rate is still the same. So, but I have a team that wants to take care of people. I'm like, what am I missing? Yeah. And so when I started to talk to you and you started to ask me those questions, I was like, that's what I'm missing. I don't know how to take the vision and the heart behind it and break it down into steps of the things that you've come in and taught me and my team. And my team's just been like light bulb moments of, that sales is, your fulfillment and your operations literally down to how someone's greeted at the door. But you can't have that great greeting at the door if your operations is tying up all of your friendly, happy people are back doing laundry.
Yep. Right.
So it's funny because some of the biggest light bulb, high value help that you've offered is like solving how do we get people freed up from doing laundry?
Yes. And then now what happens, and this is like what excites me, is because we go from that first day, right, where it's us. And I think that's where it's a struggle, right? Because most consulting works that way. But then now the key thing, the most important thing is that as a business owner of multiple locations, if you're doing 7-figure plus, if you want to scale from that, it's not going to happen off of your back. It's going to happen off of your team's back.
Yes.
Right. And so it was really cool to be able to now go and show the team that. And then now we can customize the marketing campaign to the vision, right? And so it's like Sculpt is like your vision is transformation. We looked at what that means, right? There's 3 components to it. It means that you have expert wellness providers. You have wellness coaches, right? It's not just a place where people come in and you just have a tech, right? That's cleaning up stuff and setting people up in equipment. It's like you're building experts there.
Yes.
Then we have long-term transformation, right? Which means that we are in a place where someone just comes in for an intro offer, they service it, and then they leave, right? It's like, that's not, you can make a lot of money that way. Telehealth people do it all the time. Like you see it, but it's like, but for your vision, so then we know, okay, a marketing campaign can't be a quick, they're going to come in because of a price point, right? It has to be a transformation style program.
Yes.
And so then to see your team go from having no idea what the sales process is, or like, I can't do consults, to then seeing how that new funnel would work and seeing their excitement and seeing them like behind it and like just like ready to go. Yes.
And it's like their idea.
Yeah.
And they're almost like can't wait to talk to the clients about, what else is going on? How else can we help you? It really shifted. Like we were joking about how I had tried all these other, if my team isn't selling, then I need to have them train on selling. And I was doing like the classic, just let's do objection training and things like that. And my team was like, Lindsay, this is so not us. This is like used car salesmen. Like they're like, I would never talk to a client that way. And I'm like, well, let's just take what's, make it ours, and it was just like, you're just hitting these walls and, the definition of sanity, trying, doing the same thing, expecting different results. But we were trying different things. And so that's why I think we really appreciate and are blown away with the value of what you're doing. Because again, I could come in and have a team meeting where I need you guys to cross-sell. I need you to be asking better questions. I need you to be up and present with the clients. But if I'm not coming in with like, this is how you do that, because I'm so high visionary, then I leave from that meeting and they're like, sounds cool, but how? Yes. Because you're still asking me to do the laundry. You're still expecting me to answer the phone. You're still asking me to chart. You know what I mean? So they're like, yeah, well, that was a good pump up, but like we're back to how we do it. Like we're all busy.
Yeah. And this is where I always talk about systems over scripts, right? And it was really cool to see that click for your team of, no, you don't have to have some cheesy sales script to get closes, right? It's really like if we just have a system in place from what do we do when that person walks in the door? right? And then we walk them through it, show them like, this is how a greeting looks. This is what we do for the pre-sale questionnaire. This is how we show social proof. And now what happens is we take out that pressure of you have to be such a high-skilled salesperson, which if you own a wellness business, unfortunately, you're not going to have six-figure closers. Like, you're just not. So with that being said, the system has to be able to make it work. The process that their prospects will walk through has to actually make it work for your team.
Yes.
And so now all your team just has to do is show up.
Yeah.
Right? And they have to understand the fact of like what you're trying to accomplish here, which is why we're trying to take someone who's coming in that potentially has never invested in themselves before. They have invested in themselves dozens of times and it never worked for transformation. And we're trying to take that person and show them that this is the place that they can make that transformation. And it's going to be long term.
Yeah.
And now what happens, which is the funniest part, is we get away from the scripts and the tactics and the cheap offers. But now we have a system in place where people are just going to hand over their credit card and are willing to give you $3,000 plus for a package.
Yeah, we're so excited. I can't wait to get going with it and to see, like, again, my team is bought in and it's like coming from their ideas, and they're solving the problem. And it's also, to have the way that you guided them through what the transformation programs, that we already have, but what they are, and how like the questions they can ask the clients that aren't salesy, just the way I saw them light up and engage. I'm just so thankful. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah. I think one thing to you though is you can't do this if you don't, maybe the team's not as organized as it's supposed to be, right? Maybe people are a little bit confused on roles and things like that. But there's this core element of culture.
Yeah.
And when you walk in there, because I came out once and then got back on a flight and was like, I'm coming back. But because you can only do these things if you have that culture where your team is actually engaged.
Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit about that because that's something that was there before I came in. And so I come in, I see that. I see people who are excited about what they're doing. They respect you. And when you see them interact with the clients, even when they come in the door, right? They may not have the perfect process in place for sales, but when they interact with people who are there, you can tell that they care.
They do.
So what have you done to grow that culture for someone maybe that doesn't have staff yet, or maybe they do have staff and they don't see it there?
Yeah.
How have you grown that culture?
We talk about it. We talk about why we're here. We talk about our mission and our vision. And we talk about what the heart of, no matter what we're offering, that we want them to feel heard and known. And we talk about and share a lot of our client stories. But we also talk about, or at least I do. And in a lot of our meetings, I will, I call it cast vision, but I also call it connecting to the things that are kind of unspoken that our clients are going through. So I like to share with my team reminders about when that client comes in to want to, let's say, do prescription weight loss, like the Ozempic weight loss that's huge right now. We talk about as a team what society is saying about that and what that means for the client. And so we have to remember too that we want to be empathetic, right? And so our clients right now are going through, they're seeing on the news that you're taking the easy way out, or, they're seeing headlines like, I took Ozempic and this was the horrible outcome that it had for me. And they're seeing, influencers like Jillian Michaels say that it's, bad that we're letting people take the easy way out. And the people saying this aren't providers. They've never helped anyone with cellular function. They don't even know that it's a peptide, not a prescription drug, or, that what the ingredient is. It could go on. That's a whole nother podcast. But our clients are coming in already feeling a little bit almost ashamed, and they're getting vulnerable too. And so I think what happens is that's just how we talk. We talk about and aren't afraid to kind of like, I think because I'm not afraid to call out the fear mongering and what's, because I've always started, when I had the red lights, I would talk about that. It's not vain to want to sculpt your body. We all look at our body and want things to look better. And God wouldn't have given us that lens to look through if it wasn't human. And I just really believe that we were given healthy vanity because it's a reminder for us, and only we know the reflection we want to see. And the reflection that we want to see when we feel confident and like our body is is always a reflection of when we're feeling healthy and good. And there's, because there's healthy vanity and unhealthy vanity. And so I think that's because that's the foundation of where my heart was to bring the Sculpt lights in. I've always carried that all the way through. So even when doesn't matter the service we're bringing in, we look at it through that lens and we just are always talking about it. So I think it's kind of like how we forget in sales that someone has to hear it like 7 times minimum. I think it's changed to like 11 now. But, you can't say it once and expect people to remember. So one thing that I always say too is that the hardest sell you'll ever have is actually to your team. So you should be selling to your team more frequently than you expect your team to sell to your clients.
Absolutely.
Because they forget, and it's just so easy to start going through the motions and talk about the task and the things we're doing instead of the why we're doing it. So I'm just really big on, and sometimes we'll be talking about cleaning the pod and I'll turn it into how does that affect our clients? So I think I would say, because I don't know the tactical how that's happened, except for I just think that's probably comes from, that's so important to me. The why we're doing this is so important to me.
And I think you have to have that. And there's a tactical component, right, that we can put in place. We talked about this with, creating a little bit more of a clear ops system, clear meeting check-ins and things like that.
Yeah.
But one thing that you have done that I love, because you mentioned this the other day, of it's almost like a biological clock now where when it's a team meeting day.
Yeah, I do.
And that's probably where it comes from. So for every single week, you've done a 90-minute meeting with your team.
Yeah.
For how many years?
It's actually exciting that it's been consistent for 3 years now.
3 years
because
straight.
I used to be horrible at that. I wasn't consistent. And so for someone that is, a doer and busy and next thing, business owner, I've really realized that, again, if you're not tracking it, but if you're not making it an intention. So it took a lot. I think it took us, if I remember right, 1.5 years to finally hit where it just became what we did non-negotiable. So you have to decide those non-negotiable things. And I just have found if you're not scheduling those meetings, it's just, there's always a reason someone walks in. So all of our clients know we lock the doors, so I'm willing to shut down the business to make sure that connection happens. And, as we scale even those meetings, it'll start to look a little different too. Not everyone has to attend, and pods and things like that, different divisions.
Yep.
But the other thing we've done as well too is we intentionally schedule out for 1 year in advance, and it's non-negotiable, that our medical division and our aesthetics division have quarterly meetings together.
Love that.
Because it's so easy for them to start to feel separated too.
And this is, you mentioned shutting down the location for a team meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, a lot of people are like, wait, what?
Yeah. So we're not making money that day, essentially, from walk-ins or anything.
But your actions take it even farther though, because, when I was like, hey, I'll come out, I'll meet with the team, we'll do and it's going to be 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You shut down your business for 4 hours.
With 3-day notice.
With 3-day notice, and had all of your team there.
Yeah, that's true.
You have, one of your medical directors speaking at a conference coming up. And so 2 conferences coming up. And so it's one thing that I'm seeing is you are willing to invest in your team.
I am. Yeah, for sure. And that's, so I started to go to conferences and decided I needed to be I invested in a mastermind. I paid for a consulting firm where they had tore apart my books and then put them back together and taught me, how to look at my profit and loss, how to look at a balance sheet, and now I have a beautiful virtual CFO that I made her promise me we would meet every month and I would have to look at my financials instead of waiting till the end of the year. So as I've realized how much that's helped me, I want the same thing for my team. So after about 1.5 years of me investing in my own growth, I wanted the same thing for our medical director. It'd been a long time since she got into conferences where she's always learning. I take that back. But I wanted to stretch her a little bit. And I knew that one of her secret personal goals that she never thought she would be brave enough to do is to speak and teach. And so I essentially found ways to just give her little opportunities, speak here and there. And now she's going to be, hosting her own event, So I really like finding ways to push people to grow outside of their comfort zone, because if I haven't always been kind of like drawn to do that myself, there would be no Sculpt.
And I think it's scary because if you're in a position right now where even if you're making 7 figures, as we talked about, you can still be pretty cash flow tight, right?
Totally.
It can be scary, especially if you're investing in the business or you're investing in marketing and leads and things like that. And what we'll see a lot of times is we get very short-sighted and we're focusing on short-term return on investments. And so the thing about a team that's scary is that when you invest in them, it's the long term, right? It's not going to pay off tomorrow. You're not going to see your numbers increase next month when you invest in them financially, but most importantly, when you invest with them time.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's that where if more owners were to take that risk of that investment, they would realize fast how much that pays off in the long run.
It's so true. But you've also helped highlight for me, and reflecting back to me where I almost got too far down that all my time was invested outside of Sculpt too much, and it's time. And so I kind of was missing opportunity to implement and train the team what I've been learning in a hands-on way. Yes. And I'm wanting them to be hands-on with you and teach each other hands-on and be hands-on with the clients. But had overbooked myself and overbusied myself with everybody outside of Sculpt, and it was missing that internally, like showing up and coming alongside them. And that's still so needed at the 7-figure revenue. Everyone talks about, having a business that's running without you. And what I think it's just a false belief probably for a brick and mortar wellness service-based business, that you can just totally walk away and let it self-running under the probably $10 million mark,
Yeah. And this was kind of a little bit of an epiphany mark for you, because I remember I kept saying, I was like, Lindsay, you're probably going to have to get in there. You're going to have to block more time. You have to get in there. And I kept saying that. And then you mentioned something. I was like, wait, I'm saying it the wrong way, because you thought that meant you need to get in there on the phones, get in there on the cells, get in there.
I was like, do I have to answer the phone now?
But a lot of business owners think that it's too extreme. And what I mean though about getting in there, this is if you have a good culture and you have a good team, which you have. And so when I say get in there doesn't mean that you're in there doing the work. Getting in there means that you're in there being the consultant for your business, for your team, right? Like you're now the coach. And so it's like, how do you coach and how do you develop these guys? And for every single person, it's going to be different, right? Sometimes that's clear expectations and coaching them on the tactical side of it.
Yes.
And sometimes it's what I love that I saw that you did just recently. Sometimes it's the more of the personal side of like, hey, what is your long-term vision for yourself? Okay, what are the things that are sucking your attention?
Yeah.
And then what can we do to get you out of those things and get you here?
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's the coaching to me that levels up a business. And then next, if you do that enough and if you do it in an organized way, then now those people turn into leaders themselves. And then that's where you have those leaders pouring it down. And that's where you are actually a little bit more out of the business.
And that's what I'm so excited about, because that's also what's just been like, I want to help people develop into leaders. And we have such an awesome team, but I felt like stuck in figuring out how to help them grow and develop into different, grow through their positions and have development plans. And so you've really helped highlight for me the kind of those step 1, step 2 things, taking, okay, you want to develop leaders, what's the steps to do that? And so, that's just been so helpful for even, and it was funny because I'm laughing at myself, like I want to hold accountability, me tracking and doing KPIs, but I would, let's say hire a manager of this, and I would just kind of assume that meant they knew the steps to manage. And you really highlighted for me that it's, that's a very high level type of, to say, hey, manage a department, and they know the steps. So we need to build out the steps of what does managing that area look like?
Yes.
And I hadn't done that. And so I was feeling that strain of frustrated because it's like, they should know to do that. And I was kind of laughing to myself the other day, I thought, well, if they don't know to do that, and I'm thinking that's not the way I would do it, and I wish, that was a missed opportunity and they should know to do that. If you're thinking those things, that means it's on you. It means they don't know to do it because you haven't created a system where you've taught them to do it that way that you want, and you're checking and auditing that it's happening.
Yes. Most fires happen in a small business in the wrong way, right? They happen as a surprise. And it should never be a surprise when someone gets let go. And I just know this because I've done it that way so many times. And it sucks to do that. But when you have, because, we talked about the different skill sets of employees, right? Like skill set is on a spectrum. And a lot of people, what they do is they assume just because I hired you as a manager, you're like the most skilled manager possible. But it's not how it works, especially in like a brick and mortar business where we're not throwing out C-suite salaries and stuff like that.
Right.
And so skill sets on a spectrum. And so for some people coming in, the way I look at it is like how vague of a, not a, I don't want to say command, but how vague of a goal can you give, right? Can you say, hey, we need to put in a tracking system for our client acquisition program. And then if you have someone who's super highly skilled, right? This is like your probably sweet executive, right? They can just take that one sentence and they can reverse engineer. It's like, okay, cool. This is how I've done it before 2 times. This is how we're going to do it here. This is what the industry is working right now. And they can build that. But if you have someone who's a little bit lower in that skill set spectrum, doesn't mean you have to like micromanage them, but you have to put that foundation in place and then coach them through it. So then that way they can learn that skill set and eventually level up theirs.
Yes.
And then now, next thing you know, they're starting to take more ownership. They're starting to lead. And then they can now take someone else who's on a lower skill set spectrum and help you move them up.
And I think that's what you also helped me realize too, is that if I was, let's say, the manager of where Sculpt is going as the CEO and with the vision that I have of, multiple locations. And when you ask me, okay, so if your mission is this, to transform lives worldwide, you helped me realize that'd be like giving a manager a role and be like, figure it out. And when you asked me how, like when you said, no, how are you going to get there? Like, how many locations is that? Like, what is worldwide? Like, I realized I was like, oh, I don't know how to break that down. And so again, I need to find someone that can teach me. So when you took that vision and mission that I had and helped highlight to me that nowhere in that mission and vision or after it did I have, how will we measure and know we're on track to hit that?
Yes.
And I was like, that's just like what I'm doing with my like some of the positions on my team is I'm saying, here's your role and you should know what that means, and so I think, that trickles down. And so for me, it highlights that as I am a CEO that's very high visionary, very culture, people driven, but my weaknesses are detail and implementing and creating, like breaking down the vision and mission into step-by-step thing. So I need to find consulting partners like you that force me and hold me accountable to do that. And then also set up like what you did for me, the who's tracking that, how often are they reporting it and things like that. And it actually has blown my mind how it sounded overwhelming to me, because then it's like having to do math and you hate math. But what you helped me realize is it actually doesn't take as long as I thought. And that it doesn't mean it has to be a 13-page SOP. Like you broke each role operation that you helped build for me down into like 5 core things.
Yep.
And that has been really rewarding for me to be like, oh, it's not as, I think I procrastinated and avoided slowing down to speed up because I thought it would take so long and be so hard to do.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of simple.
Yeah.
It's
You've really shown me that.
Simple is where it's at. And now the cool part about it is like you break that down to where you know what your core focus is over the next 90 days.
Yeah.
And the funny part that happens when you have it that focused is that it becomes so much faster. Like we literally just found the right employee that we needed yesterday.
Crazy.
To come in for the key position where that was key focus. And so it's like that 90-day focus is probably going to be accomplished in 30.
Yes.
But it's just like when you can have it that clear, it makes it you and your team can move so much faster towards it.
Yes. And then, because, a big thing for me is learning alignment, but I still struggled with the how do you measure it alignment until, like you said, it's a kind of it's too late to realize you're out of alignment and it's cost you a lot of time and money and it's caused frustration and roles on the team, frustration of productivity on the team or feeling like roles and tasks are not balanced. And so I'm excited to break down like more touch points and feedback loops so that when you're off off alignment just a little bit, you can get back aligned instead of it's off alignment so bad that everything's falling apart.
Yes. But for you, if you had to kind of pass on one, because we talked a lot about focus here, right? Focus is everything. And so for someone who's in the process of building their wellness business, whether they're at just 6 figures or 7 figures, what would be one area where you would suggest that they start to focus on right now?
If they're at 7 figures?
If they're at 7 figures.
I would absolutely say stopping to evaluate your systems and your processes, and auditing, efficiencies. And I would say, that's not, you're probably at that level, we've realized, is you're probably not going to be able to necessarily find the high level auditing and the operation minded leader that you need internally yet. Maybe you do and you're really lucky, but essentially if you're hitting that 7 figures and you're feeling those things we've talked about, it's not, we're still not making as much money as we thought, or still wondering, how to get more people in the door, and why isn't my team selling, and, why, our service could be better. If you're hitting 7 figures and asking those questions, I honestly would purposely slow down to really take the time to partner with someone that is a genius like you at looking at the operations, looking at the efficiencies, looking at the client journey through the sales funnel, and then fulfillment and things like that. And just taking time to kind of reanalyze everything. Maybe you find it's great and that's not the bottleneck. Maybe it highlights where your bottleneck is, But if you're like me, it's going to really help prevent a lot of pain in the future of just spending more money to make more money but less money.
Yes, I love that. Favorite part about all of that, though, I want to make sure my wife heard you say that I'm a genius. So
Then you have a genius wife too, so it's 2 peas in a pod.
She's pretty good. So where can people find you, Lindsay? If they want to kind of see your story, because I know you're starting to do a little bit more. You have some speaking events coming up as well. So
yes.
Where can people go find you?
Instagram is my jam. I love Instagram. It's Mrs. MRS. Lindsay is with an A. Kirby, Kirby. So Mrs. Lindsay Kirby. I am on LinkedIn as well, but I am just creating that. But Instagram is where I'm the most active.
Perfect. Awesome. Guys, I hope you got some value from this. Now, I will say, if you want to see more of this, if you want to actually see a live behind the scenes from actual 7-figure wellness business owners, then hit that subscribe button, follow along, comment below. If you are a 7-figure business owner and you'd like to come and be on the podcast next, shoot me a message and we will talk about it. Until next time.
Thank you.